So in this video we're going to go over some basic placement tools, layout tools for laying out a drainage network. And so first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go to the drainage utility workflow under the layout tab. We're going to look at the layout section here, and the first one is we're going to place a node. So in order to place a drainage network, like a conduit piece, it has to have a node at each end. So you're typically going to start with placing nodes first. So I'm going to launch this tool, and I'm going to select a feature definition here. So I'll just pick a CP3 feature definition, and then I'm going to follow the heads up prompts. So the first thing it's asking me for is a reference element to use for elevation. And so I have created a final surface. So if I look at this one right here, it is a complex terrain combining my proposed work with my existing terrain. And so if you're going to do any kind of like the hydraulic analysis side of the software, maybe doing some automatic delineation of catchment areas, this is going to be the recommended route forward, is to be using a final surface. For now I'm just going to click this, as we're not going to go over that side of the software in these videos, but I'm going to use that to get my elevation. And then to get my location, I have Civil AccuDraw turned on, and I will just tab over and I'm going to hit the O key and make sure that it is using this center line. And now I can key in a station and offset. So maybe I want this at 404, and the offset should be right on this gutter line. It should be a 14 feet offset. So now I've kind of tied into that location. The vertical offset I'm going to leave as 0. I'll click, and now what kind of rotation do I want? And so I want this to be relative to an alignment. And so I will click to accept that mode, and now it's going to say what element do you want to use for rotation. I'm going to use my center line. And now the way most of these nodes are set up is that the arrow should always go towards the roadway, right? And that again is going to assist with that auto delineation if you go down that road of the analytics side of the software, which again we're not going to go over in this video, but just wanted to make you aware of this. So I am going to make sure that that is at the rotation I want. So I'm going to do like north 90 west and just key that in, and now I should be right there matching with the roadway. So I will click to accept that, and now I have placed this. Okay. So now if I take a look at it in 3D, you can kind of see there it is. Now the rotation of this is kind of trying to match the surface, but then these nodes were already drawn in with the standard slope, so it's kind of overcompensating for that. So if we go and click on this node and take a look at the properties, we can take a look at a setting. It says use slope of surface is set to true, so we could change that to false. And the downfall here is if you wanted it to match the longitudinal slope of the roadway, it will not do that. So a little bit more of a graphics problem, if anything. Maybe we'll figure out a better way to handle that in the future. So the other thing I wanted to mention here is that when I place this catch basin, I set 0 vertical offset, and I should be lining up with that gutter line elevation, but you typically are going to have a depression when you call out the grate elevation of this. So it's either going to be like a 2-inch depression or or like a half-inch depression. So if I bring over like the standard construction drawing, you'll see there's one called out here, 2-inch depression. You scroll down a little bit, there's a half-inch depression. So whatever that might be, but that point is going to be used for the location of the grade elevation, station, and offset. So later on when we get to annotation, it's going to be pulling that grade elevation from there. So we will want to add a depression here. So you can come in and type that in, and you can even do that during placement. Alright, so I can just come here, I can do 2 divided by 12 for 2 inches, and make sure you put in a negative offset, and that will sync it down to make sure you have that right elevation. Now in 3D, that doesn't really look right, so you could fix the modeling side to bring your gutter line down over a transition period and bring it back up to make the model look, the 3D model at least look right. But at the very least, we need that elevation call out to be correct later on when we do our annotation. Okay, so I'm just going to place another one so we can show how to place a conduit, because like I mentioned earlier, to place a conduit you need to have a node on each end of it. So I'll come over and I'm just going to place another one here. I'll locate my reference elevation, and then maybe for this demo I'll just put in a location of 405 plus 50, 14 foot offset, and vertical offset we'll do that 2-inch depression, and we'll place that relative to the alignment, and we'll go ahead and accept that to place that. So now we have 2 nodes placed, so we can place our conduit. So placing conduit is fairly easy. So we're going to go over to this place conduit tool, and I will set up the dialog. So we'll have to go and pick feature definitions. We'll go to stormwater, proposed, and we will do just like a type B. So there are basically 2 of the same feature definitions, one with a CL and one without, and so that just means for a centerline display versus a non-centerline display. So centerline display in plan view will just display one line down the middle in plan view, whereas the other one will show the extents of that pipe, so two lines along the diameter, the edges, the inside edge of the pipe. So it's just 2 different ways to display. So we'll click that. We can choose our size. Maybe this is a 12-inch, and then we will go ahead and place our pipe. So the first thing it's going to ask for is to select the start node, and so the direction here does matter. So in terms of what the software is going to view it as, an inletting it versus the outletting side is going to be the first one you choose is going to be kind of like the start of your direction of flow. So if I choose this one and then come down, you see the little arrow as I'm drawing. It's showing that this is the direction of flow basically, and so that does matter. You do need to place these correctly. It matters really for the annotation side and ORD side. Now when you get into the analytics side of the software, it's smarter and it knows the flow is based off the actual invert elevations. But in terms of just the ORD modeling side, it's not that smart to know that information. So you need to make sure you place this in the direction of flow. So I'm going to select the other side. And one thing I forgot to mention is as you're placing your conduit, the nodes are set up to have specific regions that you can connect to. So if you notice, it was kind of snapping to the center of each side. That's just how these nodes are set up. Other ones might have a bigger connection area, but for these ones it was set to just only allow to snap to the center of each of the sides. Alright, so now we have that conduit placed. We can come over to the 3D model and rotate around a little bit, and if we get under this pavement, we should see our pipe and our conduit with our nodes connection. Right. So you can easily modify inverts just by clicking on a given feature and looking at the properties. So invert elevation, we can change that. We can click on a pipe and we can change the start or end inverts. And so here's where that direction comes into play, right? So the start invert would be the first node I connected to. It'll be the invert at that end, or the stop will be this invert at the node or the second node I selected. So again, the direction does matter here. So another placement tool I wanted to go over real quick was the place nodes. It's got an S on the end, and so this tool will let you place multiple nodes at the same time at a given interval, and you can also even choose to add in conduits at the same time. So you have an interval or a spread, so we're going to go with interval mode for now, and we want to choose that node feature definition, so I will just continue on with the CB3, and then I'm going to toggle on create conduits just to show you guys. Now I'll come here and select the conduit. Alright, choose a size, and then we can go ahead and start our placement. So first you're going to locate reference element for node locations. So maybe this will be the center line, and then what elevation reference do you want to use? So use that same elevation reference as I did earlier. And now maybe I can start a little bit lower here just to show. So let's start at maybe 410. Oh. We're at offset 14. It should lock me right there. And then my interval, let's just place it every 150 feet in this example. And then I'm going to click, and I guess I was one step early, so now I'm going to set my node location as that. Alright, so here's my start location, and then my end station. Maybe I want to go, I don't know. As you see me move down, you'll see them show up here. So maybe I'll go to like 413. Alright, so you don't really need civil AccuDraw for this case because it is letting a key in the station right here. The next step should let me do an offset. So I'm going to data point, and now what offset do I want? So I want that 14-foot offset. And now rotation-wise, it's going to be relative rotation, and we will key in our rotation as that, and then I will data point, and then we can data point one more time to actually place them. So right now they're kind of showing you the graphics. I'll data point to actually confirm that, and now you can see there's some nodes and some conduit already placed. So you can easily modify these by clicking on them, looking at the properties. Right, so stop invert. You can change them graphically. You click on the the little manipulators, you can start, moving them around and whatnot. You can click on this rule and change that offset rule if something changed. But for the most part, this video should at least demonstrate the basic placement tools. Again, don't forget about putting in depressions to make sure that your inverts are correct. Right, so on the ones I just placed, I did not put in any kind of offset, right? So these are not in there with the correct depression. Oh, and make sure you type it in right. So just keep that in the back of your mind, because later on when we get to annotation, that is going to be important